All right, I
No.
believe we're live right now. Welcome to our first ever coaching seminar. Um, yeah, we're gonna be talking about jungle, right, Shacobolic?
Amazing.
Go
Thanks
ahead and
for
introduce
calling over
yourself.
here.
Yeah.
My name is Peter. I'm Shacobolic. I'm a jungle coach. I'm actually a challenger jungle coach. Today, I'm going to be doing a little bit of the webinar, a little bit of the lecture on how to dominate the early game like a challenger. So, for anybody interested in that current topic, anybody wanting to add some little more LP, to their portfolio in climbing in league, can sure watch this. It's going to be super valuable. It's going to be super quality. I'm basically going to be laying down the stuff which I learned through maybe 6 years of solo queue in League of Legends jungling. So yeah, first of all, we're obviously gonna start with a lecture which is gonna last probably around the hour. After that hour, we're gonna leave some room for any of you guys who are interested to ask any questions if any appear, and then we're gonna do a little summary, and that's gonna be from the webinar for today. But long story short, if the Mr. Mr. Caster doesn't have anything else to add, I think we can start this, right? Okay,
Yeah,
so I'm
yeah, we can
gonna.
go ahead and start it right now. Yeah, for sure. I'm just gonna
Okay,
mute
amazing.
myself.
Okay,
I'll come back whenever you're ready for the Q&A.
okay, amazing. Okay, so let's start it. Let's start it. I'm gonna start right now with a little bit of lecture. I have the notes prepared, which I'm also going to be showing right now with the five most important things that I'm gonna be passing through today and explaining. It's gonna be definitely understanding the playstyle of our champion early on, right? If you do not understand what is the character of our role, right, inside of the early game, we're not gonna be able to play to our fullest potential. That's the number one. Number two, how to know who to play for early game, how to make a prioritization from 1 to 3, who do we want to play early game, right? And then not waste any time when deciding who we were gonna gang and how to make our plan and go execute it. The third one is gonna be the basis of jungle tracking, maybe in any other future seminars. I might be also covering the advanced jungle tracking that I also tend to teach my master tier students usually, and diamond and a little bit below. But for today, we're going to be mostly focusing on basic jungle tracking, on how all of you guys who are in lower divisions can apply pretty much right now. Okay. And the fourth one is going to be map awareness and camera control. Okay. Map awareness and camera control, pretty much self explanatory, but I'm going to be explaining exactly when do we want to be watching at the map. Is it when we are farming our camp? Is it when we are going between the camps? Between which camps we want to be paying extra attention when actually uh, looking at a map, attaining the information from the map, because in the end, playing jungle is all about reacting to what the map is telling us at a certain moment. And the very last one is going to be explaining when to recall, when is the perfect time to recall, how to not overstay the map, right? And then obviously remain to be on to the tempo. So these are the five things I actually decided we're going to be covering today, and this is what works. This is what I have been teaching hundreds and hundreds of students right now, and what brought them serious results, with some of them also reaching master tier, low grandmaster, diamond, and all of the other divisions. Okay, so without further ado, let's start with the first one, where I'm going to be explaining how to actually know what is the nature of your champion, right? Which category does it go to, right? And how to know what are we supposed to do early on. Okay, so let's do it. The first one is gonna be early strong junglers, right? Early strong jungler, right? This is a very common one in the higher elos. Why is early strong jungler category? From let's write it like this. Let's write it like junglers here. So if anybody else joins into the stream, won't get confused or anything. So we're gonna go junglers, right? Two dots, right? And then right now we're gonna differentiate between all of them, right? What are the main differences? what are the different play styles that we need to understand if we want to play these certain categories, right? So there are three main categories that you guys need to know that exist when, understanding which of the junglers that you play actually go to which one, okay? So the first one is obviously going to be the early strong junglers. The second one is going to be early weak junglers, okay? I'm also going to be covering these guys also, explaining their play style, how to avoid being destroyed early game, how to survive, and all of this stuff together. And the last one, I'm gonna call the neutral ones. This one is very controversial. Not everybody mentioned this ones, but I like to mention them. And these are usually the tanky ones, right? So neutral junglers are usually the tanky junglers that we need to be paying attention to. And I'm gonna also teach you today how are you supposed to play neutral junglers? How does their playstyle function if you're playing somebody which is tanky, a little bit supportive, okay? So let's start from the number one, which are the early strong junglers, okay? So usually we all heard about the most popular early strong jungler, which is Lee Sin, right? Who else? Who else do we know which is really strong, right? And likes to gank a lot? Well, it is Jarvan 4, right? Let's list some of these junglers, right? So you guys can recognize them. And then we're gonna jump straight into explaining their playstyle, right? And then how do you guys want to play them? Okay, Vi and Shaco. So, what are the most common characteristics when it comes to early strong junglers? Well, the biggest thing that you need to know about them is that they have high risk when we play them, right? Why do they have high risk? Well, let's say we play a jungler, some such as these guys, what do we know about them? Well, they have very bad scaling, right? They have bad scaling, right? Scaling. And then why is it a high risk? Well, if you're playing a jungle which has a really bad scaling, right? That means that we're kind of forced in a way to perform early on, right? And then make something happen, right? Because with these guys, after getting and hitting level 3, if we don't manage to do as much around the map, right? Um, we're better off playing these two categories, right? Because these guys are very high tempo, high risk junglers, which are usually being played in hard divisions, just because these junglers are unforgivable if we do not manage to overperform early game, right? So when it comes to the early strong junglers, what do? Get to level 3, right? Try to pressure the map as much as possible, and then obviously once we start a snowball, just make sure we're going to be able to close the game as soon as possible, right? Some of those junglers are Lee Sin, Jarvan, Elise, Vi, Shaco. None of these junglers have a good scaling. Therefore, they need to perform early game. They need to have a good game plan of getting to level 3 and then knowing exactly who do they want to play for and where do they want to make their repeat ganks in order to win their games, okay? Obviously, I'm gonna touch on that a little bit more also later in comparison to these other categories. Right now, let's explain the early weak junglers. Well, early weak junglers are complete contrary to these guys. What do they like to do? Well, they like to full clear, right? These guys, since they're early weak, they have way better scaling, right? They have good scaling. Let's write that down. Scaling, right? And since they have a good scaling, it means that they need to survive the early game, right? Try somehow to get to later stages of the game and then pop off, right? Just because of the nature of their champion, right? Who are some of the guys that we know of the junglers which are extremely weak early on, but as the game progresses, they become super OP, right? Overpowered and are being able to 1v9 just because of the nature of their champion. Well, who is one of those? Evelyn, right? Evelyn, one of the early weakest junglers, always gets invaded, um, always gets punished if she has a bad clear. Who else? Fiddlesticks. We have Fiddlesticks. All of these guys usually like to take at least two full clears, right? Get their get their XP, right? Leverage their XP, get to level 6 as soon as possible, right? And then obviously after that, just terrorize the map as much as possible, while on contrary, early strong jungler's job is to terrorize the map as much as they possibly can before level 6, before these guys are able to, get back into the game and start doing the stuff, right? So, early weak junglers, Evelyn, Fiddlesticks, who do we also know? Cartus, right? All of these guys who like to full clear, who like to double down on their XP, and then survive the early game. Kazakhs also, right? Kazakhs, all of the guys you can mention, which are super early, weak early on, but as the game progresses, they get better and better. What is the last one? The last one, as I already mentioned previously, are going to be some tanky junglers, right? What do we know about them? Well, the thing about the tanky junglers is these guys are perfect for low elo. Why are they perfect for low elo? Because they're low risk. Why are they low risk? Because even if you underperform early game, it doesn't really matter. Why does it not matter? Well, you're always going to be annoying. You're always going to be tanky. You're always going to be stunning the enemies compared maybe to early strong junglers. With early strong junglers, if we don't manage to do anything early game, you're going to fall off after 20th minute, right? So pretty much before after 20th minute, you will fail, right? While these guys will blossom after the 20th minute. So complete contrast in these two categories. And then in the end, neutral guys, low risk, right? Because they're also supportive type of the guys, right? Supportive. They're obviously not gonna be always the playmakers. So who are one of these junglers? Well, it's a Mumu, right? With a Mumu, there is no super insane mechanics, just making sure we hit our Q. Who else? Sejuani. Sejuani, she's also kind of tanky. Who can also be here? Zach, right? And also Ramos. We have Mr. Ramos, right? So let's make a little summary what you guys need to remember with differentiating these different junglers, right? And their different play styles. So if you guys are playing early strong junglers and you're playing versus early weak guys, your job is to invade these guys and harass them as much as possible alongside their teammates also, because if you let these guys hit level 6, farm at least 2 times, they're full clear, you're not gonna have fun time, after 20th minute once they start outscaling you. So your job is to basically hit on them early on, right? Invade them as much as possible, avoid their buffs, and make their life miserable with not letting them play for any type of the objectives. Okay, if you're playing early weak junglers in comparison to these two categories, you want to pretty much avoid everybody, right? You want to avoid everybody at all costs. You want to be ganking early on only after you're full clear, and if you see that enemy laners are pretty much begging you to get ganked. If they're not begging to get ganked, if there's no opportunity, obviously play for your strategy. It's gonna pay off. You just believe the process, farm your camps, get them to be good, right? And then you're gonna be able to outscale both of these two categories. If you're playing neutral junglers, you need to be okay with being, I wouldn't like to call it side character of your game, but you're not gonna be definitely a jungler such as Kha'Zix, such as maybe Evelyn, Shaco, those ones who are able to 1v9, but you're gonna be there to actually help your team, maybe help out your Vayne, get the kills, get the assists mainly, give the kills to your main characters such as AP carry or on the mid lane, or the AD carry onto the bot side. So these are some of the most important things that you guys need to remember when it comes to actually understanding the different play styles. So I think this is clear. And then if anybody has any questions later on, when once we finish the whole um, presentation, my recommendation is to write them down, right? So as we're doing the summary later on, you guys will be able to ask me those questions, and I will be able to also answer them to you. Okay, so to come back to our program, right? Understand the playstyle of your champion, right? In loading screen, analyze your jungle matchup, right? Not only you need to understand in which of these brackets does your jungler fit, right? But you also want to be thinking about the enemy jungler, right? And then correlation. If you're playing early strong, enemy jungler playing early weak, then bully him as much as possible early on. If it is vice versa, try to survive, try to play with your laners to kind of protect you, use the wards in a good spots, and try to survive, play for the longer game, and then outscale everybody and destroy them into the mid/late game, right? Um, so yeah, understand, like see if they're early weak, strong or neutral, right? This is important because you want to know if you're going to be able to fight the enemy jungler early on or not. Maybe at a skull crab, maybe just generally speaking, wherever you meet him, right? Because if you're playing early weak guy, and then like you're pathing top lane, and the enemy jungler is also pathing top lane, and it's gonna end up, being a 2v2 top lane. Well, you definitely know that you're not gonna win that, especially if maybe you also have a scaling top laner, or let's say the enemy top laners are kind of the same champions, maybe such as Jax versus Fiora or Irelia or Camille, something like that. But then like you're playing Evelyn, you're not gonna have as much fun playing versus Lee Sin. So you definitely want to probably recall or just go for your Skull Crab and avoid the early strong jungler as all costs. When it comes to the neutral junglers, there is the one thing that I actually forgot to mention is that they have okay scaling. They're not super strong or anything. They're gonna be supportive at everything. But when it comes to them, they don't need to full clear, okay? They can pretty much play both to the playstyle. They can play early weak playstyle and they can play early strong playstyle in terms of clearing their camps, right? Because Amumu can always take his red, Krugs red, and then gank bot side, gank midland, depending on where the enemy jungle also started and who did he decide he wants to gank early on, and then which lanes actually give him the best return on investment on visiting them, and is there even an opportunity for us to go on that particular lane and make a gank there? Okay, these are all the things we need to be paying attention to and thinking of. Okay, so early week neutral guys have very flexible clears. They don't need to go for the full clear, but they also don't need to like keep all of the camps. They can go for a couple of the camps, but they can also full clear. It's going to be completely dependent on what the map is telling us at a certain moment, and we're just going to be reacting to that same information. Okay, so I hope that clear. We go on to the next one. Next one, how to actually understand who are we supposed to gank early on. How to know to make a prioritization that I have been speaking about a little bit earlier on. 1 to 3, how to make a proper prioritization. Who do we want to gank? Well, this is not as hard as many people make it to be, right? Why do I say this? Because many people usually seek for the wrong information, right? But the only stuff you need to be thinking of is if the lane has some CC or if the lane is snowbally, okay? I think CC is pretty much self-explanatory. It's pretty much crowd control. Any lane that you can kind of see that has, stun, slow, hook, whatever, you do want to gank it because it's going to allow you to get a fed early on, and start a snowball. So now, snowbally actually has two meanings. The first meaning of snowbally is if we have an ignite, right? If you have a laner which is running ignite, or if you have a laner which is going melee, right? Whenever you have two melee guys, right? Let's say we have like two melee guys on top lane, right? And they're trying to farm each other's minions. Every single time, let's say Camille tries to hit the Jax minion, she will need to decide if she wants to lose the trade versus the Jax or if she wants to finish off their minions. So in melee type of lanes, whether it is a melee lane top lane or melee lane mid lane, you always want to be paying close attention because these lanes usually will be under 70% of the HP, usually, which you will be able to double down on and then, make your fortune ganking early on and starting a good snowball. Ignite, pretty self explanatory, the same way as CC. Once you see somebody running Ignite instead of TP, you know he's going for the snowball. And this is usually onto the mid lanes. You can see something like Fizz versus Yasuo versus sometimes Irelia Mir, right? Um, Talon, LeBlanc, all of those guys like to run Ignite. So you definitely want to be paying attention to that particular lane because there's going to be a lot of the action happening over there that you want to be paying attention to. And then utilizing that information, paying attention, and then taking your kills. Okay. So these are some of the things that you need to be paying attention to. Okay. So right now, I'm going to list some of the laners that you guys want to be paying attention to, and then which also marks some of these things. So for the top lane, it's obviously going to be any bruisery guy who's melee. What did I mention? Melee guy. Jax can also go both Ignite and TP depending on his playstyle, obviously. Who else? Who is also kind of melee and bruiser? Camille, right? We have Fiora, right? Fiora, we have Darius, right? These are all of the insanely good laners to gank early on, whether it's on your team or the enemy team. You're gonna have fun ganking these lanes, especially because majority of them have either a good follow up, such as Fiora Q, or Camille with her E, maybe R, Darius with his E, Jax with his stun on E, and Q jump and all that stuff together. Mid lane, I already mentioned. If you have, let's say, Balzahar, right? Obviously, you want to make sure after level 6, to gank this guy. You might have Svainmir, who will be able to use his E. That's a good stun. You might have a Galio, right? Once again, stun. He also might go TP. He might go Ignite. Can go very flexible. Lux is also fine, but Lux can also go into the support one. Who else? Like Gragas, right? All of these guys have some type of a CC, or they might be running Ignite, such as also LeBlanc, Talon, Fizz, and I can do this till tomorrow, just listing and listing all of these guys. That if they run Ignite, boom, that's a go-to lane too that you probably want to be paying attention to more than the other lanes, right? And then the last one, I'm gonna just put the bot set as the one, right? Um, Usually, the more important guy is gonna be looking for the support. If you have somebody like Nautilus, right? Not Nautilus, right? This guy super good to gank, has a in like generally speaking for the bot side, if you find yourself having any hook shot champion, anybody who stuns, anybody who can set up a kill, you definitely want to visit that lane. Or generally speaking, anybody who has a good engage, such as Nautilus, such as Leona, such as Amumu, right? You want to be reaching out to this lane and then using your ganks on this particular lane, wasting the enemy laner's sums, maybe into the first sequence, and then on second clear, AK sequence, right? Um, just making sure you get a kills and boost your laners over there. Okay, so this is something you guys need to be paying attention to, and it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. To repeat it once again, CC/no bully lanes, and then thus make a prioritization. Now, when it comes to the question, who do you not want to gank? You do not want to be wasting time, especially on the bot side. If you have something like maybe Ezreal, right? You have freaking Ezreal, and he has also Yumi on his head, right? You're just better off letting this guy scale up. Boom, have his time. He's gonna be very useful later on. If there is a free kill on Ezreal Yumi, just go. Give him a gank. But usually it's way better, if you have LeBlanc here that you can gank, or Darius, or whoever is here, that you can start a snowball through, right? Then onto the top lane, anytime you see a tanky guy, just run away. Just run away from that lane. Maybe early on, if you see Mundo, if you see Orn, if you see any of those like super tanky guys, they're only good if you see an opportunity early game to gank them, and then later on you just want to stay away from them and then do your own job, because no matter how many times you actually kill enemy Orn, which is top laner, he's always going to ult your whole team and knock them into the space, right? But if you manage to kill enemy Vayne, 10 times, obviously this is going to give you better return on investment, because Vayne is extremely item reliant. She needs items in order to be useful. Orn doesn't need items. Orn will still have, with his one or two items that he will have, his art to knock all of the people from your team and then CC them, while Vayne will not have the damage. And on top of that, she doesn't have that much CC besides maybe her condemn, which is her E. So when it comes to who do you not want to gank, it's usually going to be the worst possible return on investment if you gank the tanky guys, unless it is complete early game and then people are still not buying Ninja Tabis, aka the plated steel caps, which people call them also these days, Mercury Shreds, or anybody else like Cyan, Orn. Um, Even I would like to add the um, I forgot the name of, but has the tentacles onto the top lane. I forgot the name of Eloy, right? So basically, pretty much Eloy top lane. After getting level 6, you probably want to stay away from that lane and try to win through mid, try to win through bot side, and then do as best as you possibly can. So let's get back to summarize. Who to gank early on and making a prioritization, right? decide towards which lane you want to path, right? Make a prioritization for 1 to 3, which lanes you want to gank the most, right? And what are we looking for? Look for CC and snowbally lanes. And obviously, in the beginning, right, this is gonna be kind of harder for all of you guys to try, do it all at once, right? But the more times you practice it through many games, it just becomes like a 1 second process. For me right now, when I get into the game and I see enemy jungler who he is, I instantly know, okay, this guy's like, I don't know, I'm playing Kha'Zix, he's playing Lee Sin. Okay, I don't want to fight him as much early on, but later on, as I get to level 6, I will be able to outplay him maybe with my R, right? What about the prioritization early on? Okay, I have like, you know, tank top lane. I want to stay away from that lane. I have Fizz versus LeBlanc mid. I definitely want to be paying attention to that lane. And maybe I have Draven and Nautilus bot side. Yeah, they definitely want to make some time ganking them, especially if I want Draven to cash out on his playstyle. And that just goes like as you practice it more and more, uh, make your mind think about this thing every single game. It just becomes a 1 second process while that's pretty much the way the information gets processed once you learn to utilize it really, really well. Okay. So I think that's clear for now. And I think I will be right now going into the basics of the jungle tracking. I will be giving some tips on how to actually jungle track properly. Okay. But knowing how to jungle track properly will obviously stem from the previous knowledge of, us knowing what is the category of the enemy jungler? Who are we playing against? Are we playing versus really strong jungler? Are we playing versus really weak jungler? Or are we playing versus neutral jungler? Because that information alone will help us with jungle tracking, right? Because if you're playing versus Evelyn, you will definitely be able to assume, right, that she's probably going to go for the full clear and then show maybe for the Skull Crab or the ganks, right? Then if you're playing Lee Sin or whoever, right? Well, maybe then you want to start over here. Boom, take your 3 camps, maybe blue, grump, red buff, right? And if you can assume correctly that she's going to be doing this with asking your mid laner to place a ward over here at 120, you will be able to tell if your assumption is correct. If your assumption is not correct, okay, it's fine, right? Like, not every single time they will do the same stuff, and that's completely fine. League of Legends is a very fluid game, and thus you need to adapt to what's happening at the current moment, right? But in order to jungle track well, the first tip will be either you trying to sneak out the early ward onto the enemy raptors over here, or way more safer way more safer tip is asking your mid to ward the enemy raptors at 120, right? And then later on, let's say we path like this, an enemy jungler path like this, if we told our mid laner to ward down there and we see Amumu showing up, enemy Amumu doing like this, and then like this, and we see him just passing towards the top lane, our only job from that moment on is just to protect our mid laner from this side, right? So if she's getting ganked or he, depending on the champion that we have at our mid laner, we just want to cover from this side because she actually did something really, really nice for us, warded for us there. So might as well make sure if she's getting ganked from this side, we not only ping the enemy jungler location, right, in order to tell her to be extra careful, but we also will be available for the counter gank over there if it actually occurs. Okay, so the first tip that I want you guys to remember is 120 ward that you can ask your mid place at the enemy raptors. I don't care if it is here or if it is here, depending on the team that you are, if you're a blue team or if you're a red team, but that's something you need to pay attention to. Or if you're in lower divisions, you're usually going to be able to sneak out the ward over here, place it around the 50th second as a jungler, then recall, take the Oracle lens, right? And then go base and then pretty much start wherever you decided you were gonna start into the first place. Okay. That's gonna be the first tip. The second tip is way more easier, pretty straightforward tip. It's it's pretty much reading the information that map is going to be giving you at a certain moment. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, if the enemy bot lane is obviously showing first, boom, then we can assume for sure that enemy junglers has started here, right? Boom. That this is a pretty easy one. But you guys might ask, what happens when actually they fake it, right? What if they fake it, right? What if they just show at both lanes show at the same time. Well, that's when it comes to your camera control, where you will need to click specifically over there and see for maybe enemy Alistar who might be missing some of the mana, right? Or enemy ADC missing the mana or some HP, or maybe enemy top lane. This is the biggest clues you will be able to search for. But obviously, um, sometimes it's very unreliable, especially once you start climbing to diamond and above, to actually only look at the lanes, because people will also be doing the fade of sorry, not fade, but like fake leashes, right? This is what I used to do when I used to playing challenger and grandmaster, and I had a support. Let's say he was here and I was starting red buff. I was always telling my Alistar, my Blitzcrank, to tank at least one over here, even though they didn't leash me, right? But once he comes here, these guys will ping that I'm starting here. And if I'm starting here, which I'm not, I'm actually starting here, they're gonna be pinging that I'm starting here, which means you know by the time they think I'm on the red buff, they're gonna be pinging over there. This guy, enemy mid lane, is also gonna be laying down the wards here, enemy top lane here. Even though I'm going to be able to end the bot set, and then pretty much finesse them, right? And then they will be playing more aggressive because they will have a fake sense of security because they thought I was gonna be top lane, and this is very, very smart thing to do once you start climbing, because they can never tell, even though you got leashed here, but maybe your Aurelia just did autos. If your Blitzcrank took one auto from the blue buff, these guys will automatically think that you got leashed in blue buff, and that you're probably going to end up top lane. And this is super important in hard divisions where kills happen very rarely. Once you're in lower division, nobody pretty much knows the rules or anything of jungling, of laning, or anything such as that. So you guys will be able to track pretty much just looking from the lane who comes later, right? But for anybody in hard divisions, I highly recommend faking the first clear, faking the first leash with asking either your top laner. It can also go vice versa, right? You can always, if you're starting here, you can always ask your top laner to come at the same time as your bot side, and then maybe get hit by blue buff once, and then walk into his lane. This guy will be spamming out of his mind that you as a jungler started blue and that you're pathing towards the red side, even though you're going to be pathing towards him. Once again, he's going to have a fake sense of security, which is going to, bring you an opening to actually make a successful gank, and with him being surprised. I actually had like challenger bot set at one point when I played Shaco at a time in challenger and grandmaster, high grandmaster, where I pretty much started the blue buff with my boxes and stuff, and then like I just said boom, just fake leash this, and these guys had no clue and had fake sense of security. I did my three camps here, red buff, skip everything else, skip Krug, skip Raptors, went here. They were playing extra aggressive because they thought they could do, right? I jumped the wall, boom, from in Challenger, Grandmaster, this one gang pretty much ends the game. So yeah, this is why I'm stressing so much on this, and for you guys to kind of remember it, okay? So this is something you need to be paying attention to, especially when it comes to um, basics of jungle tracking, right? So I hope you guys remember. The first one is obviously paying attention to the lanes, who comes later. If they're faking it, if both of the lanes are coming at the same time, you can always look for the mana or HP missing. And in the end, like, I want you guys, like, if you're playing in hard division and stuff, you can also ask your laners or in team oriented play to actually do the finesse, right? With maybe support tanking one auto or our top laner, depending on where are we starting, and if we want to actually hide our early on information, so we will have that surprise attack early on without enemies actually knowing exactly where we're going to come from, or maybe just having this fake sense of security, as I mentioned a little bit before. Okay, so that's how we know where the enemy jungle starts. And then the second one is obviously just ask your laner to ward you the enemy raptors, or at around like 1/20th second, right? Or you yourself can just kind of sneak out in lower divisions when nobody's going to be defending this place. You can just kind of walk in, place the ward on enemy red buff for here, around the 50th second, fall back, recall, take the oracle, and then pretty much get back onto the buff you decided you were gonna start. Okay, let's go for the next one. The next one is very interesting one because it's the most one of the most common pretty much mistakes that people forget to think about, especially into lower divisions, right? I see so many people in silver, still playing with a locked camera. For a lot of the people, this is not an issue, but for any student that I ever get, if I want them to climb, the first things always, if I see that they're playing the lock camera the first week, we're not doing anything. We're just making sure they will get the muscle memory on their map awareness and camera control. I don't want to see anything else from them. I just want to see them play 20 to 30 games without camera locked and getting used to clicking on their thumb, right? On their space, sorry, with clicking on the space bar, right? With their thumb, right? At the same time as they're doing their Q, W, E, R here, and then never ever thinking about clicking the Z or wherever they actually key binder the locking of the camera. Okay, if you want to be the top tier jungler, there is not gonna be any room ever for locking the camera. Okay, so once again, if you play with a lock camera, take a week, take 2 weeks. It trust me, like 50% of your climbing problems are gonna be solved if you just take maybe a week or maybe two on solving this, and then later on, you're going to be able to focus on understanding the playstyle of your champion, who to gank early on, how to make a prioritization, the basics of jungle tracking, and you will be able to utilize more knowledge on top of you being able to do proper camera movement. Okay, so beside camera control, there's map awareness. What about the map awareness? I see so many people watching the map either at the wrong times, right? Or too much or like too little, okay? So usually it's not gonna hurt you to, watch the map as much as possible, but then like you need to have your clear to be also as efficient. The If you want to play like a challenger, grandmaster, master tier, first of all, what you need to do is you need to make sure that you're full clear, right? I don't care if you're playing early strong, early weak jungler. I want your full clear to be somewhere around 315, okay? Imagine you playing in a gold division, right? Imagine playing into the gold division and having a 315 to 320 clear. Well, you're going to be pretty fast onto the other side of the map compared to majority of the lower elo players whose full clear is usually around like 330 to 345, right? You're going to be way faster, and this is what we like to call tempo. Tempo in jungle basically means you being able to make a play before the enemy jungler. How do you achieve tempo? Well, you make sure that your clear is as fast as possible, right? You practice it, you did practice it at least 10, 15 times, right? To pretty much get it to its fullest potential. So once you get a match versus these lower elo guys, they will never be able to match you because you will have tempo on them, right? You'll be able to make you will be the first one to make the play, right? And then once you're the first guy to make the play in, let's say, in a situation where enemy jungler is pathing towards the same lane as we are in this situation top lane, if you're faster, not only you get the first gank there, right, but after you make a gank, you instantly made yourself a priority for the skull crab also. And then obviously if you have prior mid and prior bot, which you can't really do much about that, but if you have, sure, take even the second skull crab. If I had this in high low, I would know straight away that I just won the game, I would be further ahead of the enemy jungler, and I know I would be hitting level 6 pretty much soon. And level 6 is usually very important because that's usually the time where you should, you will be thinking about fighting the first team fight maybe around the dragon, So if you're playing Diana, if you're playing Shivana, Karthus, or anybody with important global ults, or generally speaking, important ult, is going to make such a big difference, okay? So I want you to work on, your clear speed, right? And then once you fix your clear speed, that's when you come to the map awareness, which is basically the topic that I wanted to talk about, right? So if you don't have any issues clearing your cams, then what you're supposed to do is start looking at a map. The best possible times for you to look at a map is usually when crossing between the cams. This is the best time you can look at. If you're a total beginner, then sure, like try to first put some time into your clear, and then also practice looking at a map just a little bit, and then increasing their time over the time by a little. Okay, the biggest time zone where you will be able to watch around the map is definitely going to be able walking from Krugs to Raptors, and also from Raptors to Wolves. Usually, whenever I coach people, I always tell them, if he's playing early strong jungler or neutral jungler, I tell him, okay, man, if you're here, you need to decide right now, is this gankable or not? If it is not gankable, you proceed here. But then, as you're proceeding to Wolves, is this gankable or not? And you're early strong or neutral jungler. If this is gankable, screw all of this. You're going over there, you're making a gank, getting a kill, starting a snowball, and then you can clear all of these camps, take a skull, recall, go on a second sequence at 420, which your camps are going to be spawning here once again. Okay, that's what you're going to be doing. Okay, but if you're doing all of like this, boom, 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 clearing your camps, and over here, this is not gankable, this is not gankable, sure. Even though if you're like ES, early strong jungler, right? Like still full clear camps, there is nothing happening, right? And then in the last option, if you have no information where the enemy jungler is or where the enemy jungler started, because sometimes you will be able to take right red buff, then Krugs, and then Raptors, and sometimes you will be able to not continue the route here for the full clear if this and this is not gankable, but you will be able to do something like this. Because usually, if mid lane is not gankable and top lane is not gankable, means that these guys are pretty much under the tower and your laners are pushing, right? But what does that mean if your laners are pushing? How do we call that? Priority. We call that prio, right? Prio. If you have prio, you have an opening right now to go straight away and invade the enemy jungle onto the red buff. Obviously, we want to be thinking if you have really strong mid laner, because if you don't have Talon LeBlanc who can follow up on this, if you get in trouble, better not even doing it, right? If you have casted in mid who can't do that, who can't walk up, who needs to scale up, you're probably going to be better off not even doing that unless you're playing hyper aggressive early game jungler, such as maybe Nidalee, Graves, Shaco, Listen. But once again, those guys are being played in high divisions because they're early high impact, right? But as the game progresses, they become more and more irrelevant. But in high divisions, as you guys climb along the ladder, the games are going to be decided in the first 5 to 10 minutes. And when you have that knowledge, obviously, when people in high divisions have the knowledge that the games are over pretty much in the first 5 to 10 minutes, they're decided who's going to win. Everybody wants to win early game. That's why Lee Sin, Shaco, and all of the other early strong junglers that I mentioned before, such as also Elise and Jarvan, are being played in hard divisions, while the early week guys are, on the contrary, way more better if being played into the lower divisions because they have zero risk. Because no matter how bad you play early game as an early week jungler and you underperform, you're still gonna be able to, clear camps, right? Play of them, and then if the enemies are not good enough at a game, which in lower divisions usually they're not, you're gonna be able to scale up, get back into the game, boom, and then just outscale and be able to 1v9 just because of the nature of your champion. Okay, so I hope that is clear. Okay, so map awareness when transitioning between the camps. Look what's happening on nearest. Okay, I might need to do this so we see this more clearly. When transitioning between camps, look what's happening on your nearest lanes, also known as the lanes you're heading toward. This is kind of what I talked about before. When you're crossing like this, obviously pay attention mid, pay attention top lane. At this time, it's pretty much useless to pay attention to this bot said, because if the enemy jungle is going like this and you're going like this, um, um, never mind, my bad. If the enemy jungle, let me think. What did I want to say? Oh, never mind. I said it actually correctly. So if the enemy jungle is going like this and we're going like this, right? But like all of a sudden we make a U-turn like this and gang bot said, boom. If this doesn't work, what does this guy do? Boom. He goes, collects all of these camps over here, and then if this gang didn't work over here, boom, we are kind of screwed till the rest of the game or till the rest of the early game. We kind of lost the upper hand that we could have had. Okay, so that's something to pay attention to. Okay, and I think the last time sorry, not the last time, but the last thing that I actually wanted to mention today is the back timer gold. I see once again so many people is just like overstaying, not knowing when do they need to recall, after how much time that has passed in early game they need to take their first recall. And this is pretty much not that hard, right? Your purpose as a jungler early on is to attain at least 1100 gold, right? However you can possible, right? Because full clear, full clear is going to give you around 850 gold, right? So if you do not get any kill or assist early on, you're probably not going to be able to attain this gold, which is going to be, this is the gold needed to start a snowball, right? This is the gold needed for a snowball. Let's just write it as a for a snowball. This is the amount of gold you need, right? And in order to get this gold, you need to make a kill or assist. So I assume, if you have been watching the stream by now, you probably had the, game plan. Who did you want to play for early on? And you decided some of the CC or snowbally lanes where you're either going to be able to make a kill because you have, like, I don't know, blitz bots who's going to be able to hook or stun, or you have Jack Stoplin, who's going to be able to follow up on your gank with his Q and jump and then his E stun. So hopefully you choose that, so you're going to be able to get to this goal, right, in order to start a snowball, okay? Because 1100 gold is a sweet spot. Why is it a sweet spot? Because let's say you're playing AP guy. Sorry, never mind. Let's say you're playing Kha'Zix AD. What does Kha'Zix need to buy on his first back? Well, Kha'Zix needs 1100 gold for what? What costs 1100 gold? Well, serrated Dirk, right? If you want to start a snowball, because serrated Dirk for assassins is the biggest power spike possible. If you want serrated Dirk, boom, you need for the first clear to get this serrated Dirk, right, for 1100 gold, which means you need to make something happen if you want to start a snowball. Then, what else? If you're playing in AP jungler, what do we buy? We buy Hextech, right? We buy Hextech Alternator. I'm not gonna write it whole. Alternator, right? What is the price tag on this one? Well, it's 150 gold, right? So once again, if you attain this amount of gold, you're gonna have enough. On this one is 1100 gold straight there. And what else do we have? For neutral junglers that I mentioned before, such as the Mumu and stuff like that, what do we need? Well, we will be buying Bami Cinder. How much does the Bami Cinder cost you? It will cost you 1150. So what if you do not manage to get up till the for this amount of gold early on? Well, you recall, right? You will recall around like 900 gold, and obviously you will buy the um just components of any of these two. Maybe you buy two serrated dirks and maybe boots. On this one, I don't know, you might as well just buy the blasting one that boots, or depending on what you have the gold for, maybe you just have the gold for the blasting one, right? And then Bummy Sinner, I guess you might be just buying two ruby crystals or something like that. And that's fine, because not every single time you will be able to make some kills early on, even though if you had a proper game plan and you went into execution, because not every single time people are be playing very aggressively. Sometimes you will have both teams playing scaling champs, and they will be playing very passive. So might as well just focus on your farm, take the skull crabs, take a good recalls, and scale up. But the answer to the question, which lanes sorry when do we need to recall early on, is going to be this: usually once you attain 1100 gold, or around 900 to 850, right? This is the gold needed after assist or a kill early on to start a snowball, which is a perfect goal we need. Obviously, if you have more than this, definitely you're in a good track. But this one is kind of fine. But it probably means that nothing kind of happened. Either nothing happened early game, or sorry, the first clear, right? Or we just didn't use the proper opportunity, right? And then why does it say over here 420? Well, usually, let me explain these timings, okay? Usually, I mean, not usually, always, your red buff will spawn at 130. If your red buff spawns at 130, you're approximately going to be taking at 145, right? And then it's going to be respawning when? Well, it's going to respawn 5 minutes later, which is going to be at 6:45, right? Maybe to 7 minutes, right? Well, this is your timer for the red buff. But what is the timer for your camps? Well, uh, the timer for your camps is going to be 2 15 seconds, right? Your camps are going to be, never mind, your camp is going to be respawning after exactly 2 minutes after you cleared it the first time. So we will assume that you probably cleared, if it is 420, it's usually 220 when you will be clearing the second camp you did, which is, let's say we did the red buff, finish it at 145, right? We finished the red buff at 145. We need like a couple of seconds to walk here, and usually around like, of actually, I got the thing about this is like I don't know. I didn't check out if the Riot Games changed it to be like 2 minutes exactly, 2 minutes exactly respawn timer, or 2 minutes to 15, because and depending on the season it was different time. I didn't check it right now because I know they have been doing once again the jungle changes and everything. But one of these two is for sure. Okay, the only thing you guys need to remember is uh, at 420, the second clear is going to be available. You're going to be seeing a yellow stopwatch over here, and you want to be recalling roughly around that time, especially if you have this much gold, even though you might have some of the camps left out here, because this is going to be high tier level camp, right? You want to be clearing, right, and getting there as soon as possible as it spawns, right? And usually that timer is going to be around 420 when you actually finish it off. Okay, so this is the timer you want to be having in your head around 415 to 420. Your second, your level 4 camps are going to be respawning here compared to your level 1 on your first clear. So that's something you need to really remember and be aware of in order to be able to take a good recall, right? So what do we need to know for the first recall? 1100 gold, boom, and 420 roughly around that timer you want to do it. Sometimes obviously it's gonna be maybe in fifth minute or something like that, depending on the game and everything, because every single game is gonna be different. And the top tier junglers are the junglers who can adapt. So the main thing between the low division guy who plays jungle and high tier player is not only their efficiency, how fast they go through their jungle, but how well they adapt and how well they read information that they're supposed to react to. Okay, so yeah, okay guys, we are very slowly closing down right now onto the end of this presentation. We covered majority of the stuff we needed to cover, which is pretty much the how to dominate the early game like a challenger, understanding the play style of our champion, who to gank early on, make a prioritization, basics of the jungle tracking, map awareness and camera control, and then the back timer goals. So right now, I'm gonna do the summary of what we kind of talked about today, and then if you guys have any of the questions right now that you might want to ask me, or that you might have written before, anything about a jungle is welcome. I will answer all of the questions if there is any after doing the summary. Okay, so let's do the summary of this, and then we will read some questions if there is any. Okay, nice. So once again, what do we talk about today? The first things, we need to understand the playstyle of our champion. As if you guys remember well, we have three categories. We have early strong junglers, early weak junglers, and early and neutral junglers, right? What about the early strong junglers? These guys have terrible early game scaling, right? They're not sorry. These guys have a terrible late game, right? They don't scale as well, right? They want to get to level 3 as soon as possible, try to terrorize the map as much as possible early on, and then as the game progresses they will start to fall off. But then what do we want to do about it? Well, we want to make sure that we are actually getting to the spots where we might have been taking rift, and trying to close the game as soon as possible. That's what we do with early strong junglers who are super strong early on, which we need to double down on if we're playing Lee Sin, Shaco, Elise, any of the other early strong junglers that I mentioned before. That's the way we play them. If you're playing early weak junglers, you need to survive the early game. You need to full clear at least two camps, right? Two times the 2 times your camps, right? And then make sure that you get to level 6 and then start terrorizing the map and outscaling pretty much everybody. So survivability is the main characteristic you need to remember about early weak junglers. Early strong junglers usually take a couple of the camps, get to level 3, and then gank as much as possible and try to end the game as soon as possible, because their peak is kind of before 20th minute. After 20th minute, they start falling off. These guys are way better, after the 20th minute. The longer it goes after the 20th minute, the better they're going to be. Who did we say here? It's Evelyn, it's Cartus, it's Hekrim, Kha'Zix, everybody pretty much who is scaling early on, okay? Those are the guys we need to be paying attention to. And the last one are the neutral guys, which are tanky, as we mentioned before. They're kind of the mix between these two. They do not need to specifically early game do anything, but they can skip camps. They don't need to full clear, so they're kind of in the middle. These guys are true embodiment of low risk if we want to play them, because even if obviously I mentioned this about the enemy top laners and generally speaking top laners before when analyzing the laners and stuff who do we want to gang, but same applies to these guys. Even if you go 0 and 10 with Sejuani, with a Mumu, with whoever you're playing tanky guy jungle such as Zac, you're always going to be stunning the enemies, you're always going to be annoying, you're always going to be um, you're always going to be applying slow, silence, whatever the kit of your champion has, compared to early shown guys. With early shown guys, if you underperform early game, um, you know, pretty much you're not going to have fun into the mid and late game, because you will start out getting outscaled by both of these categories here. So yeah, that's something to pay attention when we play the early weak guys. And then what else did I mention? After this, we need to decide who to gank early on, right? Make a prioritization. I hope you guys remember by now. I will show once again this one. Boom. So we have CC/Snowbally lanes, right? On top, CC, pretty much self-explanatory. If you have crowd control, look for those guys. It's present on every single lane. Snowball has two meanings. It's either ignite guys who are usually on mid lane, but can be also present among the support and present among the top lane, right? And then melee guys are usually present mid lane and top lane, because whenever they farm each other minions, they will also collide with each other, which means they will be under 70% of HP. So you definitely want to be making sure you play for those guys, right? So decide towards which lane you want to path, make a prioritization from 1 to 3, or which lanes you want to gank the most. Look for CC/Noble lanes. About the base or jungle tracking, what I mainly mention over here is that you guys can either ask your laners to ward over here or on the enemy raptors over here at around like 120. Boom. Get their vision early on, get that information. You will be able to ping where the enemy jungle is starting or what is he doing. Sometimes, if you're playing in lower divisions, around the 50th second, you can obviously join over here yourself. Nobody's probably going to be standing here in lower divisions. Place down your ward, recall, buy the oracle, right? And then just play the game from that moment on. Then the next tip that I mentioned about the jungle tracking was um, paying attention to the lanes. Who comes later? If enemy bot lane comes up later, good chance they're leashing here. So pay attention to that. Make sure you ping it if that's the true. If both of the lanes are coming at the same time, well, then you need to be a little bit more precise. You might as well need to click there, see the HP of the enemies. Boom. If they use some mana and stuff, but they're coming at the same time, that might be a clue for you to kind of be able to tell where the enemy journey is going to be starting, okay? And then the last tip about the jungle tracking, which is kind of meant for the higher divisions a little bit. um you can kind of fake leash. You can ask your laner to fake leash. Maybe your Mordekaiser top lane can get hit once by the blue, so the enemies will just ping. Mordekaiser came out to our lane. He lost some of the HP. Good chance he started here. So you'll be able to kind of finesse in hard divisions your starting point, and therefore still preserve the surprise factor that every single jungler need to have. Okay, so that's the finesse that you can kind of take and use when actually playing into hard divisions. Okay, so that's about the jungle tracking and map awareness and camera control. I already said about this. If any of you guys are playing with lock camera, please make sure you do not do it. Go for a week, make sure your camera is on the point, okay? And then afterwards, just focus on the other stuff I talked about, okay? What about a map awareness? Map awareness, I also talked about this. Whenever you're crossing between your camps, you need to be looking at your nearby lanes. Obviously, do not look bot side if you're pathing here and towards your top lane. Make sure you look mid, make sure you look top lane, and then you get the right information in, okay? So when transitioning between camps, look what's happening on your nearest lanes, also known as the lanes you're heading towards. Sometimes you might look to skip some camps in order to collect free kills. Always look what's the most urgent situation in the moment, okay? And the last thing for today is going to be managing your back timer. I already mentioned this. Um, Once you attain the 1100 goal, this is your perfect early game pattern. Clear some of your camps, look for gank or scuttle, attain around the 1100 goal is if possible. If not, still recall, take your time. If you're playing early weak jungler, you're gonna be fine. If you're playing early strong jungler, you're not gonna be as fine, but you're gonna be kind of fine, where you might need to look for more opportunities on your second sequence, aka second clear, in order to be able to make something out of your game. Because if you're playing early strong jungler and you don't have good scaling, if you don't make anything happen too much early game, you're not gonna have fun playing versus early weak guys into the late mid game or late game. And 420 is usually roughly the time when our Krugs or our Grump is going to be respawning as a second camp, depending on which side of the map we actually started, okay? So yeah, I guess that would be the summary. This is some of the notes that I actually also wrote, right? First, clear, plan your clear according to which lanes you want to pressure early. Kite the camps towards next your destination. I think this one is pretty much the common sense. Map awareness drills for whoever who has not as great map awareness can always go ahead and you know increase their map awareness with making a training, making a custom game in League of Legends, setting up 3 bots on the enemy side and on our side, and while clearing the camps, obviously after focusing on having our full clear as efficient as possible, also introducing right our map awareness in between, and then practicing either clicking on the map. I don't recommend that much clicking on the map, but if that works for you, sure do it. I think anywhere below Diamond 2, clicking on the map is gonna work. Past Diamond 2, I think it's not gonna be as valuable, okay? So yes, and I think for the summer right now, that's gonna be pretty much everything. I think you guys learned a lot. I know that I bombarded a lot of the information all of a sudden. Um, it definitely takes some time to grasp all of this into one picture. But the whole point of this presentation was to show you guys how to dominate as an early game like a challenger, how to be like how to manage to get to those divisions that any of us think that are impossible. If I would give any advice, it would be just use the proven process, right? Use the proven process that I'm showing you guys and just stay consistent. Without consistency, you won't be able to make as much progress, okay? So yes, this is gonna be everything pretty much for today about a presentation. Any of you guys who are interested in intro climbing can copy any of these notes. If you guys want your hand held, you want somebody to hold you accountable, I do coaching. I do professional coaching. If anybody's interesting, we can arrange something. But for now, this alone is going to help you a lot. So pay attention to this. You're also going to be able to rewatch this. Pay really, really close attention to details that I was speaking about, because this is 6 years of solo queue me playing solo queue, kind of explaining the first part of the game in one simple video. Okay. So yes, let's read. There is a one comment which says, Evan says, "Listen to Shacobolic, the best jungle coach." I would agree. Just kidding. I don't think if I'm the best, but I think I'm a great presenter. I think people like to listen what I have to say too, and I honestly think what I'm speaking out of my mind actually makes sense, and it actually works out with countless of the students I've been able to coach throughout the years. So I think that would be everything pretty much from me today as a presenter. I would right now like to call the Mr. Tony. to see what is happening, and if this is going to be the end. So, is there Mr. Tony on the line? Hello, hello.
Yo, onto the line. You make it sound like we're in a phone
Okay,
call.
amazing. Nice, man. Okay,
Well,
hello,
does
Mr. Tony.
yeah, I mean, does anybody in chat have any questions for Shacobolic here? I mean, he's here, right? Might as well ask something if if
Yes,
anyone
sir.
has
So
anything, right?
I'm not at often available for this type of webinar. So whoever has a question, if has any, it's way better to ask right now. So if there's any questions, feel completely free to ask anything, and we will answer them all. Okay.
I mean, I had a question, but you answered it like the next second, so there goes mine.
Yeah. So what was your question?
My question would have been like, okay, well, what if I play an early game champion and there's not a single gankable lane? What do I do now?
Mhm.
Because I'm playing
If
early
you
game and
play
I
a
can't play the early game.
really strong guy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So there is something which I like to use, which is called jungle location plus lane state equals gank slash counter gank, right? And you say if there's nothing gankable early on, boom, you recall, take the scuttle, right? Go on the second sequence. You see for more opportunities, right? If enemy jungler had a same clear, right, as you into the first sequence, and then on second clear, your bot lane might be pushing, boom. You know this guy jungle location is somewhere here. You know that the lane state is pushing. What does this look like? Well, it is a gank for the enemy. It is a counter gank for us. So you can always kind of, ask yourself about this one, okay? You see this one, boom, you know where the enemy jungler is. You see the lane state. You can kind of always tell if it is a gank for you or if it is a counter gank for you. But trust me, man, like it's very rare going to be happening where you're playing a really strong guy, and they're like, okay, sure, maybe on first sequence, first clear, nothing's gonna happening, but on second one or around the time the 5th minute when the dragon starts spawning or the rift, the the stuff is going to start happening. Okay, but my best advice if you're playing early strong jungler is pretty much to uh ask for a fake leash early on so the enemies have no clue where you're starting early on so they can't really play defensive. So that's my advice. Ask for a fake leash. Let's say you're starting blue buff, but you ask your Janet to get hit once by red buff. She comes there, boom, these guys see, even though both of the lanes came same time at a lane, pretty much, these guys will think, okay, she got hit. Very good chance that they started here, boom. And obviously, you can use that and leverage it, right? Such as maybe taking this, boom, red buff, and then ganking them, and they will once again have the false sense of security because they would think that you started the red buff because Jana got hit once. So it's just the mind games. Jungle is all about the mind games. So I hope that answers your question.
Mm-hmm. I have two more questions. One being, when you fake leash, when should you show yourself? Like timing, if you have that.
So usually laners should not be leashing anywhere more than 7 seconds, right? 7 seconds is a sweet spot for leashing, and usually if we know that a buff spawns at 130, right? Usually at 137 is when the laner should leave. So however much time the guy needs to walk here, which I would not give more than like 8 to 10 seconds, I would give, so pretty much 45, 47. But the only important thing is for the top laner and this guy to show at the same time. And usually if the top laner is not leashing, right, if he's leashing, these guys, if they're not leashing, they can just be staying here while this guy's leashing, and as soon as this guy starts walking, this is when they also start walking pretty much, or they can be just like Jana can go there, AC can stand there, and then they can obviously show up exactly when they see this guy showing up there. So yes, that would be the answer there. It's just the timing. It's just the timing, and 7 second is usually the sweet spot for the leashing timer.
All right. Well, that I guess that actually answered both of my questions, even though I didn't ask my second question. Which my second question was like, how hard do I leech? Like, at what HP do I leave it? But you said it's not
Yeah,
about the
you
HP
leash around like
necessarily. It's about the seconds, right?
no, it's like 7 to 8 seconds because if you If you leash more than 7 seconds, usually you will miss as a laner the first 3 minions, which means you're gonna be delayed the level 2 power spike, right? That you need to have, in order to dominate the opposite laners in the bot side or laner into the top lane. So yes, anywhere behind 137, if you go further, boom, it's not gonna be good because your laners are going to be kind of late, and this is a very common mistake. People do not really pay attention to lower divisions. That's why they tend to die early on, get first blood and stuff like that. So yes.
Yeah, or sometimes the jungle even like takes so long to take the camp because sometimes they just give a light leash or whatever, right? Because they just don't
Yeah,
want to be
yeah,
late for the thing.
yeah,
But
that's also the thing.
yeah, all right. I guess no questions in chat. They're all extremely smart, I guess. So we just go with that.
Nice.
Um, yeah. Uh, Thank you guys for coming on to our first ever seminar, right? Or webinar, I guess how you called it.
Yes,
Um,
sir.
this video it's gonna be here for as long as Twitch allows it, right? But it's also gonna be I'm gonna be uploading it on YouTube, piece by piece, right?
Yes.
So you can expect that. Um, and yeah, if you guys want to join the Discord, go ahead. If you guys want to sub, go ahead. Follow, go ahead, right? To join the Discord, all you have to do is just scroll down, click on the Discord button, and boom, there you go, you're in. Want to contact Shacobolic? That's probably a good place to contact him, I would say, right? So,
Yes. Everything is through the Discord. So yes. Okay, Tony. It was nice doing this webinar. Thanks for having me here. And then that's it for today.
all right then. So, I'll see you guys, or we will see you guys in the next stream. Later, boys.
Okay. Bye bye.